Hi, hey, and hello there. Obi-Han here, and welcome back to the Comic High Ground. Alright, I know I'm a bit behind. Some stuff came up, and don't worry. The Ultimate Spider-Man issue 2 review is going to be coming in the next couple of days. I had some family things pop up, and I just couldn't record at that time. But this particular bit of, I say news, it's not news, I guess. It's more of like a rumor mill type of thing. Actually, no, it's not even a rumor mill because this is like a flat out statement. So I'm going to put it on the screen now. As you see, John Semper, the writer of the 90s Spider-Man series, has said that basically he's open to continuing the 90s series, much like the X-Men 97 series, but he's just waiting on them to call him. That's all they have to do is call. So at this point, we're kind of like, look, Marvel, you should have been calling yesterday. You should have been calling 2 months ago. You should have called the moment that X-Men 97 was greenlit, right? Because this is like a given. And to be honest, well, okay, so the X-Men series is one of those series from the 90s that's very beloved. It has this high reputation, much like the Batman Batman the animated series, not the Batman, even though it has a good track record too. But no, I'm talking about Batman the animated series. That and X-Men is like, for whatever reason, that's the 2 shows that people just talk about when they talk about comic book cartoons from back then. But me, Obi-Han, I have a different story, because if I'm talking about comic book cartoons from the 90s, I'm talking about Spider-Man the animated series and maybe Batman the animated series. And that's not a knock on X-Men, but that was the 2 shows for me. So it should be a no-brainer that after they greenlit X-Men 97, it's like Spider-Man should have been like right there. It's like it should have been like, okay, X-Men's greenlit, and let's go ahead and start working on Spider-Man. Like that should have been just like, hand in hand. It, to me, is like printing money. And one good thing about John Semper is that, like, going back and looking at the history of when he was working on the show, John Semper would do things. He did things his own way. They had mandates. They had things they had to do, but ultimately he was going to tell the story. He was going to tell his story. He was going to make sure that the series was a success, regardless of any limitations, like Spider-Man not being able to punch people and things of that nature. He worked with all the limitations that they gave him, and he made, in my opinion, the best Spider-Man cartoon of all of them. Yeah, Spectacular fans, I know you all don't like to hear that, but I'm just saying, when you look at it in its entirety, you look at the roadblocks that it had as a series, the things that they couldn't do. You look at the technology and the animation from the 90s versus when Spectacular Spider-Man came out in 2008. And there's a lot of differences. And not only that, but this show lasted longer than Spectacular Spider-Man, and it told more of a full story, even though this show kind of had a cliffhanger too, but it told more of a full story than Spectacular Spider-Man did. So absolutely, that before any breath of a Spectacular Spider-Man continuation is even thought of, this show needs its continuation, point blank period. Because Mary Jane is, if you don't know, so for those of you who don't know, and I don't know why you wouldn't, because I'm sure almost everybody has seen this cartoon, but for those of you who don't know, basically at the end of this series, we find out that Mary Jane, the Mary Jane that Peter had married, was a clone, and that the real Mary Jane, who had fallen into this dimensional portal from the episodes with the spy and everything, there's a whole thing. But Mary Jane fell into one of those dimensional portals when Spider-Man was battling Goblin, and at that point, Peter pretty much couldn't find Mary Jane. She had went missing, so the entire plot of the series changed because he didn't know where she was, and then he went through this kind of darker, well, not darker, but he was meaner. He was colder. And that was around the time Black Cat popped up, and then, like I said, a clone Mary Jane popped up, and you know the story, or if those of you have seen it know the story. So after what was basically the Secret Wars and something called Spider Wars, which is basically early prototype for Spider-Verse from way back in the 90s. Madam Web scooped Peter up and she was like, yeah, it's about time we went to go find the real Mary Jane. And the series pretty much goes off with them going through dimensions or whatever to find Mary Jane. Now, Semper said that there was actually a storyline that he created that followed the events of that. I think he wrote it in a book or something, or a play. He basically I think he released a script, and he basically detailed some of the different worlds, because it wasn't just gonna be they find Mary Jane and that's that. There was actually like this whole thing with like Carnage and some other stuff. I think with like some medieval knights or something. It was a very interesting plot line, which means it was definitely going to be another full season. They weren't just going to find Mary Jane and that would be that. So with that said, now that he's had the time to kind of, get that plot in the public, people know what that's about. And now that there's a possibility of him being able to bring this show back maybe, and maybe add a little bit to that season that he was planning. We don't know. The sky's the limit, because he could have Peter go through all that, bring Mary Jane back, and then they properly get married when they get back to their world, and he could start implementing some more modern Spider-Man stories to the animated series, because that's one of the things that made that series so good, was that it adapted a lot of comic storylines and put it into the show. And for a lot of people, that was their introduction to Spider-Man through that show and his world and his greater comic storylines as well. So yeah, there's a lot that's great with this 90s series, and that's one of the reasons I said that Spectacular Spider-Man, while good, doesn't quite hit the heights that the 90s series hit, because again, Spectacular Spider-Man only had 2 seasons, and Peter was still in high school, and they hadn't even talked about college or anything. And while it does touch on Spider-Man stories or Spider-Man comic arcs and everything of its own, I think that the 90s series had a more full catalog, I guess you could say. It touched on things that Spectacular Spider-Man really didn't get to. Now, again, in Spectacular Spider-Man's defense, they did have Gwen and everything, which this show did not really do. Gwen was in it, but in like an alternate universe. So, again, that's something else that maybe they could include Gwen, because he never met a Gwen in his main universe. So, it's so many things they can do with the 90s series. I saw a tweet or a comment a couple days ago. There was someone complaining about Miles Morales, because there's always someone complaining about Miles Morales. But they were basically saying that they're always trying to shoehorn him into properties. But the thing is, Miles is an organic character at this point. Like, he is not really shoehorning if you put Miles in the story. It's almost like putting a new, it's like putting a new star in the series alongside Peter. And regardless of what people say, what people complain about, Miles is here. He's almost up there with Peter in a lot of ways. There, of all the alternate Spider people, Miles is like right there. Like he's left above everybody else, and it's not through some type of pandering, and it's not through some type of forced narrative. Like he climbed up there. He crawled and fought and got his way up there to the same popularity level almost as Peter. Now, of course, Peter is still Peter, and he's always, I think, going to be higher, but still, Miles has really, made his way up there to the top. So him showing up in this cartoon, which actually, again, would make sense, because you look at this Peter, he should be, he was out of high school, he was in college. I want to say he was, if not finished with college, and getting ready to be finished with college. But again, the 90s Spider-Man definitely works for telling an older Peter Parker story. So they could actually take advantage of this and, again, have him aged up a little bit and make the series a bit more mature, because obviously the show is going to be for people in the 90s, the 90s kids who are grown now with wives and kids of their own. So this is a good opportunity to tell a more mature Spider-Man with those characters from that show. So again, it's a win-win regardless. We're just waiting on, I get, who is it, Feige maybe, whoever's in charge, to go ahead and call up Simper and ask for this show to be continued. And again, I don't know what's the holdup, because it seems like it's printing money. It seems like a given, and I don't think we have to worry too much about Simper including any of these, as I spoke of in the X-Men video. I don't think you have to worry about Simper really shoehorning in any of these narratives or these, agendas. I think he's here to tell a story, and that's what he's gonna do. There's not no shoehorning agendas, no political stuff. It's a Spider-Man show. It's gonna be about Spider-Man stories, and that's that. So that's one of the best things about Simper, because he's one of the best writers of all those shows, in my opinion. So with that said, hit that like button if you like the videos. Drop a comment. Let me know. Even though I think I know already, are you excited about the idea of the Spider-Man cartoon coming back? Because that's at the top of my list personally. Like, please hurry up and bring it. Go ahead and greenlight it. Subscribe for more, and remember, we have the high ground. Catch you later.